Hello everybody. So MetaPlanet recently closed its Q2, and the thing that comes to mind is the word in a hurry. They are in a hurry. Faster, higher. That's the theme of this video, because velocity matters, and really it's hard to find a company who's more eager to buy Bitcoin quickly than MetaPlanet. They buy on up days. So every weekday was an up day. The moving strike warrants activate, and boom, they buy, they announce, they make the news. They've been relentless. Q2, and we didn't know this. My last video from 2 months ago or something like that about MetaPlanet, we didn't know they were going to beat their guidance again, but of course, Q2, they beat the guidance again. Q2 was 129%, up from 96% in Q1. Think about that, right? 100% in the BTC bag, that's a doubling when you post 100%. So that's very impressive. You can see they've bought the top, they've bought the bottom, they always buy, and these are the purchases history. They have been relentless in buying, and this is beautiful to see. Really makes me wonder about why some other BTC Treasury companies are so slow. MSTR on MetaPlanet, they are the fast acquirer. MSTR is once a week. MetaPlanet is once every other day or every 3 days, right? The velocity of the money matters. The velocity of the buys matter. The speed of the turnaround matters, right? You don't have Bitcoin treasury companies, a little bit like Bitcoin miners. They don't have a customer. So you don't have to wait through the door for a customer to see how many customers come in. You're a restaurant, you have a lot of customers because you drop your prices. You're looking at price elasticity. That's a good thing. You want to make sure you have more customers. This is not how it works for a Bitcoin treasury company. A Bitcoin treasury company is the speed at which a Bitcoin treasury company acquires Bitcoin is directly dependent, and I would even argue mostly dependent on the desire of the CEO to actually go fast. Why do I say this? And let me just use examples. We've been waiting for months from certain company. I will show you GameStop here. So GameStop, the presentation at the Bitcoin 2025 conference, I didn't like it. I don't get the eagerness to acquire Bitcoin from GameStop. Even though they've said that they were all about a Bitcoin treasury company now, I don't see that eagerness at all. Look at that price to NAV. It's a 20. It would make many of the BTC treasury companies jealous of that price to NAV, and they're not using it. They're not tapping their ATM to buy more Bitcoin. It's very disappointing. A stock that I'm bullish on, but come on, Michael Moe, what are you doing? I've been waiting for you to buy, right? The ATM in place, they have a $300 million ATM. It's nearly a month. The last buy was on June 9th. Like, the ATM's in place now. The reverse is in place. Everything's in place. The price to NAV is very high at a 2.5. I celebrate when MicroStrategy dilutes at a 1.6. So 2.5, that's a very high price to NAV. Why isn't Cooler bought just yet? I'll do a special mention, though, for the blockchain group. The blockchain group seems to have a CEO who's very much eager to buy, and he's been buying a lot frequently. And of course, Alexandre Lézé, if you listen to his interview, he talks about, I sleep, eat, and breathe Bitcoin. All I think about all day is how I can acquire more Bitcoin. So maybe the blockchain group is very small, and it's hard to acquire in the US. So it's still a small company. But what's going on with, say, the GameStops of the world, the Coolers of the world, or even the Semlers? Although the Semlers, I understand why Semler is not buying. Their price to NAV is no good. That is why they are not buying a lot of Bitcoin. But the velocity matters, and the velocity is here at MetaPlanet. Look at that. They've doubled the amount of Bitcoin on the balance sheet since May 16, 2025. So they did a 2x in the Bitcoin bag in 45 days. May 16, they had 6,796. Now they have 13,350. They have been relentless in their use of the moving strike warrants, which is just the Japanese version of an ATM. MTPLF has not been shy about tapping the ATM. They've been diluting relentlessly because they understand what most folks still don't understand about BTC Treasury companies. I was watching a podcast earlier today from Bloomberg, again, entirely misunderstanding this business and this industry from Bloomberg, of all actors, from Bloomberg, entirely getting it off. Anyways, folks still don't understand that getting diluted by $1 in order to receive $4.60 is a good thing. You lose $1 to dilution. You lose it. But in exchange for losing that dollar, you also gain $4.60 that flows into the business. Therefore, the dollar gain is $3.60. That is what MetaPlanet has been diluting it at $4.60, right? They've actually been diluting higher than that at 4.96. I don't know why I used $4.60 here. Imagine how much dollar gain they were making mid-June when they were trading at a price to NAV of a 10, 10.2, 10.3 price to NAV. Let's call it a 10. So if you dilute by $1 and your price to NAV is 10, you're gaining $1 for each dollar of dilution. So you can see they've been diluting into strength. Look at how beautiful. You can see as soon as it hit 10, you can see MetaPlanet goes very, very hard. Buy. Dilute as much as you can. And the mNAV recovers. The mNAV recovers based on the bullishness, quite frankly, based on the new cycle that these buys create. That's few companies get that. And the velocity thing, I think MicroStrategy and MetaPlanet, as far as the speed of acquisition, maybe Blockchain Group at some point, but MetaPlanet and MicroStrategy, they get the idea of velocity, of the quick turnaround. You got to issue the shares, you buy the Bitcoin, you repeat at a very, very high speed. You oscillate, right? That's the concept. That's a form of speed. Back to MetaPlanet. So how quickly did they double, right? They doubled 13,350. They did that in 45 days, like I said. But let's talk about the over double. So their guidance. Let's talk about the guidance a second. The guidance for year-end 2025, so in 6 months, the guidance is they're guiding for an over times 2.25x. They are guiding that they will have 30,000 Bitcoin by the end of 2025 in 6 months. That means that in 6 months, we're going to move from $13,350 to $30,000. Now, let's push it a little further and let's talk about it in a year and a half. Year-end 2026, they are guiding for 100,000 Bitcoin. They're guiding a 7.5x for 13,350 Bitcoin. This guidance tells me that they're going to be relentless. They're going to be using the ATM. They're going to be absolutely relentless in their goals to acquire. Let's see what that translates. And in fact, I didn't even give a screenshot of the stock price in this video. It's to tell you how much I care about the business much more than the stock price here. The stock price is at $11. The stock price right now is in a coiled spring phase. They are coiling the spring. Okay, that's what they're doing. So what if the stock price were to stay at $11? What if they kept going with this strategy of adding Bitcoin, but the stock price stays at $11? So today the mNAV is 4.96. Let's fast forward to 6 months from now, year-end 2025, when they will have 2.25x their Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So we take the mNAV, we divide it by the growth in Bitcoin, and we would get a 2.2 mNAV in year 2025. Feasible, still believable. It is believable. If the stock price doesn't move, it is believable that you could have a 2.2 mNAV, at which point I would consider the stock very, very, very cheap compared to its historic mNAV. But now let's get into the realm of something that I consider nearly impossible, is negative mNAVs. What if we were to go a year and a half out to full year 2026, end of year 2026, now they've multiplied the Bitcoin on the balance sheet by 7.5x. So what do? We do 4.96 mNAV divided by 7.5. That would mean that at year end 2026, the mNAV would be 0.66. Do you really think that MetaPlanet would be trading at a 30 to 40% discount to Bitcoin on the balance sheet in 2026 if it were still trading at $11? My answer to this is no, I don't believe so. So as I see the mNAV compressing and going down like it has a little bit, I look at this as a coiled spring. This is a coiled spring, and eventually it will pop back up. And we can't really know when. We can't really predict when that's going to happen, but they're monetizing that mNAV and making a return. They are selling $1 for $4.96. They are losing $1, but getting $4.96 of worth back in their hand that they can turn around and put in Bitcoin. That's the magic of Bitcoin treasury companies. All right, let's finish this video with 3 things that support mNAV, 3 positive things that have happened this July, news from this July, I guess late June. So the first positive thing that has happened for MetaPlanet is collateral marginability. So they've just announced that the restrictions to use MetaPlanet as collateral have been removed. Removal date July 1st, 2025. Now we have margin on MetaPlanet in Japan. In the US, it's OTC, so if your broker gives you margin, you got a good one, because I don't see any margin coming in the US for holding MetaPlanet. But we have margin in Japan, and of course, Japan is their home market, right? This is a very big deal. Why is this a very big deal that you can borrow against your shares? Well, quite simply, a house on which you can get a mortgage is always, a house on which you cannot get a mortgage is always much cheaper than a house on which you can get a mortgage. Sorry, this is my second video of the day. So if your house is impaired for some reason and you can't get a mortgage for whatever reason, a floodplain or something, well, all of a sudden, the cost of your house plummets because you can't pledge it as collateral. This is a big deal for MetaPlanet. MetaPlanet can now be used as collateral. A lot of banks are going to pick up on that. A lot of financial players, money managers, hedge funds are going to pick up on that. This is a big deal for them. A stock that you can borrow money against is more valuable, all else being equal, is more valuable than a stock where you can't borrow money against. So that's point number 1 that could foster that mNAV and lead that mNAV to keep growing. Point number 2. Do we have a revenue line? Yes, we have a revenue line. This is very special for a Bitcoin treasury company. I mean, sure, Strategy has a revenue line, but it's so small. This company has a revenue line, and maybe they're going to have an earnings per share too. I mean, every company has one, but I mean a nicely positive and growing earnings per share. Why do I think this supports mNAV, by the way? Well, I think this supports mNAV because you see, all of the news articles, traditional finance, TradFi, is equipped to only look at revenue. They're equipped to look at revenue growth. You still see these robot articles, these robo news, where it's the news, it's the robot reports the news, and you can see they just read the statement, and they focus on the income statement. They focus on the income statement. I think most people in the BTC treasury world believe that, of course, a Bitcoin treasury company should not be judged on the income statement. It should be judged on the cash flow statement and on the balance sheet. They are growing via the cash flow statement and balance sheet. They are not growing via the income statement. But this is not how the financial world works. Everybody reports on the income statement. So now, thanks to their strategy to earn premiums due to cash secured puts, and I don't know what kind of collateral they use to earn those premiums on cash secured puts, but essentially they sell puts on Bitcoin because they know they're going to buy Bitcoin anyways, and they earn premium on those puts. And so they earned for year to date, for 6 months, they earned $13 million worth of premiums, dwarfing the income of the hotel. And by the way, those premiums are, as far as I'm concerned, they are pure profit. And so they're showing revenue growth. And so I think this is going to lead to positive review by the financial press, by all sorts of stock screeners, and by the robot press, the automated press, these articles that you see. There's earnings announcement, you have an earnings announcement, and then 30 seconds later you have hundreds of articles written. These are robots writing these, right? And they use the income statement to write that. So I think I understand why they want to have a revenue line. It looks cleaner, it looks better, it looks good. So that's the reason number two. I don't think they really need this that's not a thesis for the company, right? That's not part of the thesis. But that's a sweetener. And of course, 13 million, 2.5 million, it's nothing for them compared to how much Bitcoin they buy. But, they still add it into the Bitcoin. So that's good. And then point number three, the things that support mNAV, it's the media. I should call it social media, because all media is moving social. All media is going to be social at some point. You see these legacy companies struggling, but nonetheless, let me show you a few examples. Right? Keep in mind, each of these posts got more than 100,000 views from his account alone, but I don't know how much they got in the community. From the CEO's account, it's at least 100,000 views for all of these points. But so the era of social media, you want to have a message go through. You got to do a short clip. You got to do a short video. Simon has a few short videos, 5 seconds. You got to do, meme-worthy pictures, something like that, right? That's the management team. And of course, I think that's working, because you can see apparently the MetaPlanet's stock is among the top 10 most popular stock for the people in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s, and their 50s. So that's a big deal. That's why there's a focus on shareholder count. The more shareholders you have, the more noise you have around the stock, and the more you're on people's mind whenever it's time to buy something, or whenever people think Bitcoin, they're going to think MetaPlanet, because now there's 128,000 individual shareholders. And so I think that's the reason why Simon Gerovich keeps track of that. And lastly, and this is perhaps a new thought, again, going back to the velocity and the speed at which you buy, one buy, and this is not lost upon anybody, one buy equals one headline, right? Every week MicroStrategy buys, and so every week on Monday morning, you have news articles, hundreds of them on all websites saying, oh, MicroStrategy just bought X amount of Bitcoin. For MetaPlanet, this news is every other day or every 3 days. And so they have essentially 2x the headlines, 2x the headline power than, say, a MicroStrategy would have. I think this is perhaps a thought for Saylor. Perhaps Saylor should now announce bi-weekly, so that it gets in the news twice a week instead of once a week, right? That's something that it could do. Just file the 8K every 3 days. File an 8K on Monday, file an 8K on Wednesday, file an 8K on Friday. Right, 3 times the news. You could do it like that if you work on your ATM all the time. It's just nobody's forcing people to use a weekly calendar. You can do it on a day-to-day basis. So, anyways, that's kind of my thought on this, and I think this is powerful. So I'm very bullish on MetaPlanet. As I analyze it today, I'm asking myself, why do I not own more? That's what I'm asking myself. Why don't I own more? So anyways, this was not investment advice, not financial advice. This is only entertainment. I'm hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.